All right, so here's the stat everybody throws out there. Colorado 1-7 against top 25 with Shedeur as the quarterback. So he must not be very good. So how relevant is that stat for you?
That I don't care about as much as I care about, like, what did you do for the people around you, right? So did Travis Hunter make Shedeur Sanders better or the other way around? I remember watching Brandon Whedon play at Oklahoma State. And he had these good receivers, year after year. I think it was like, if my memory is correct, it was like first it was Des Bryant, then it was Justin Blackmon. Like it was these guys that were good receivers, and it was like, kind of feel like they're making him better than he is. That would be my concern more so than, the win-loss, against top teams. Because, look, sometimes you just might have a defense that isn't good enough to stop the team that you're playing. And that's why I say what I do about Cam Ward. Look, I've called Miami games previous 5 years. Miami is not the Miami of old. Miami was looking for a quarterback to elevate, the players around them. They tried it with De'Aaron King, and then they tried it with, a variety of guys. It's just they're not the Miami that, from the early 2000s. So for him to kind of go do what he did at Miami, like he was elevating the play of that roster. That's the type of stuff I think is very important and very difficult in the evaluation process.
Okay, so interesting perspective. So we can take two separate parts of that. One is whether the credibility of the Pro Football Hall of Fame has taken a hit with Bill Belichick in particular, and I think Robert Kraft almost equally so, not being voted in. That's a topic unto itself. Let's put that to the side for a minute. The other is, do we believe that what is happening here is the voters are holding something against the Patriots, whether it is all of the winning that they did, which might have inspired some backlash, whether it is some of the nefarious stuff, the Spygates and the Deflategates of the world, whether it is a little bit of the institutional arrogance that people perceived, particularly Bill Belichick's sort of unfriendliness. What would you say if that was at play here?
Yeah, then Tom Brady would be concerned.
I agree with everything Sam said in terms of the strengths of Shedeur Sanders. He is smart. He knows how to play the position. I think where it gets really tricky is like you're talking about rarefied air when you're talking about drafting a guy at the top of the draft. And look, he just is not as physically talented as you would like to see. I mean, it sounds crazy considering he's Deion Sanders' son, but like that's just the case. And so, look, my comp on Shedeur Sanders has kind of been in that like Andy Dalton range. People have compared him to Kirk Cousins. Look, those are compliments. Both of those guys have thrown for over 250 touchdowns through their NFL career. Both of those guys have led teams to the playoffs. But when you're talking about the top half of round one, look, again, you're looking for elite traits. And he just doesn't have those. Now, look, you're going to have to beat the market at quarterback, so you're going to have to draft a rookie quarterback at some point because of what's happened with the Deshaun Watson deal.
Stop everything you're doing. An NFL veteran just delivered the most savage quarterback takedown in recent memory, and the entire football world is losing its mind. What Tim Hasselbeck said about Shedeur Sanders is so brutal, so unfiltered, and so absolutely shocking that it's got every NFL fan, analyst, and player talking.
A player that don't know that anyone is building around that. Could he end up, playing in the league for 10 years, in some role as a backup and then maybe get an opportunity to play? Sure, he could. But I don't think that anybody, listen, there isn't a single team of the 32 that would look at him right now and be like, yep, I want to build around that guy. It's not, I'm not saying that to be demeaning or mean. That is the reality of who he actually is as a player and how he is viewed, quite frankly, consensusly around the league.
All right, we'll have to wait and see what they wind up doing there. Again, they have 2 picks in the first round. Maybe they go late first round for a Ty Simpson or someone like that. We'll see what they decide to do. In the meantime,
during what seemed like a normal discussion about the Cleveland Browns quarterback situation, former NFL quarterback Tim Hasselbeck just dropped an absolute atomic bomb that has sent shockwaves through the entire football universe. And when I tell you this take was brutal, I mean it was so savage that people are still picking their jaws up off the floor. When asked the simple question about whether Shedeur Sanders should be Cleveland's starting quarterback, Hasselbeck didn't just say no, he essentially ended Sanders' starting dreams across all 32 NFL teams with one devastating response that nobody saw coming. No, and they won't, Hasselbeck said with ice-cold certainty that made everyone in the studio freeze. There isn't a single team of the 32 that would look at him right now and be like, yep, I want to build around that guy. But here's where it gets absolutely nuclear. Hasselbeck didn't stop there. He went full savage mode and suggested that Sanders might not even make it as the second-string quarterback in Cleveland. Let that marinate for a second. A fifth-round draft pick who many thought showed elite potential just got told he might struggle to crack the top 2 on any depth chart. Shedeur Sanders started trending faster than a Tyreek Hill sprint, with the NFL community absolutely erupting in response. Twitter became a complete war zone with Sanders supporters firing back, while critics were nodding in agreement with Hasselbeck's nuclear assessment. Some are calling it the most unnecessarily brutal quarterback evaluation they've ever heard, while others are praising Hasselbeck for having the guts to say what everyone in NFL front offices is apparently thinking but won't say publicly. Here's what makes Hasselbeck's take so absolutely crushing. This isn't some random media personality looking for attention. Tim Hasselbeck played quarterback in the NFL for 8 seasons. He knows exactly what separates elite quarterbacks from career backups, and more importantly, he knows what gets you cut from rosters. When someone with that pedigree speaks, everyone listens, and what he said about Sanders' physical limitations has got people questioning everything they thought they knew about the young quarterback's professional future. I think there are things he does at the position extremely well that you need to be able to do well to play in the National Football League, Hasselbeck admitted before delivering the crushing blow. I think the bad side of it for him, I just think physically there are limitations that he has as a player.
No, and they won't. And I mean, that's just the reality of it. He'll be on the roster because he's, on a rookie contract, or at least he'll be in the training camp roster. He's on a rookie contract from a year ago, much like Dylan Gabriel. Those guys, I would think, would add, the Browns would add, somebody with starter experience to compete, because there's just no way with just, probably what the evaluation has been of Shedeur, as a player in the pros now, as well as how he came into the league, that they would give him the opportunity to, quite frankly, I don't think he would even enter training camp as the second guy, on the roster. So I don't think that's how they'll operate. It's hard to become a head coach in the NFL, and if you do, you got to try to win with a quarterback, and most guys, including Todd Monken, aren't going to try to do it with somebody.
He was projected to be an early round pick, ended up dropping all the way to the 5th round. The question is, why? Eventually he got picked by the Browns. Help me understand what happened here and why.
Listen, this is a challenging situation, but it's really just musical chairs. There's really only 5 teams in this year's draft that were looking for a starting quarterback. One of them was Tennessee with the first overall pick. They were taking Cam Ward from Miami. The other one was Pittsburgh, and I think they're waiting on Aaron Rodgers. So now we're down to 3 teams: the New York Giants, the Cleveland Browns, and the New Orleans Saints. And essentially what happened was Shedeur was in the mix. He was in the running for one of those starting jobs, and he didn't get it. The Giants picked Jackson Dart, the Saints picked Tyler Shuck, and then the Cleveland Browns went with Dylan Gabriel, who finished 3rd in the Heisman voting this year, quarterback out of Oregon. And so Shedeur got left out of that musical chairs of starting quarterbacks. And now we're talking about backup quarterback, and that's why I think he dropped so low. Because of his personality, I'm not sure he's really the kind of guy that they felt like would fit as a backup to whoever the starter was in their locker rooms. I think the problem is there's 3 things that I know are huge in a locker room, in an NFL locker room. Excellence, being the best in the world at what you do. Hard work, no one's outworking you ever. You can count on me to get my job done. And then the third is unselfishness and humility, being a team player, not throwing your teammates under the bus, things like that. And I think that third layer might be the part that gave some NFL teams pause.
The timing of this bombshell couldn't be more perfect or more brutal for Sanders. Just as new Browns head coach Todd Monken was introducing himself to Cleveland, refusing to commit to Sanders as his starter, Hasselbeck delivered this devastating evaluation that essentially questions whether Sanders belongs in starting conversations anywhere in the league. Monken himself twisted the knife deeper with his diplomatically devastating non-commitment. I think, like any position on the team, that's still to be determined. When your new head coach won't even give you fake enthusiasm, you know you're in serious trouble. It's hard to become a head coach in the NFL, and if you do, you gotta try to win with a quarterback, and most guys, including Todd Monken, aren't going to try to do it with somebody like Shedeur, Hasselbeck explained, with the kind of brutal honesty that makes general managers write notes. The Browns are sitting with 2 first-round picks, and Hasselbeck's assessment makes it crystal clear they'll be looking elsewhere for their quarterback solution. Whether through free agency, the draft, or trades, Sanders isn't viewed as the answer in Cleveland, or apparently anywhere else. Here's the most shocking part of Hasselbeck's revelation. He claimed this represents the consensus view around the entire league. That means all 32 front offices, all the scouts, all the coaches, they're apparently all thinking the same thing about Sanders that Hasselbeck just said out loud. That is the reality of who he actually is as a player and how he is viewed, quite frankly, consensusly around the league, Hasselbeck revealed, essentially pulling back the curtain on what NFL decision-makers are saying behind closed doors. Hasselbeck did leave one small window open. Could he end up playing in the league for 10 years, in some role as a backup, and then maybe get an opportunity to play? Sure, he could. But that's essentially saying Sanders' ceiling might be a career backup with occasional spot starts. For someone who many projected as a potential franchise quarterback, that's a devastating downgrade in expectations. This evaluation has guaranteed that every Sanders throw, every practice rep, every coaching comment will now be scrutinized with microscopic intensity. The pressure just went from significant to absolutely crushing. For Sanders, this represents the ultimate crossroads. He can either use this as nuclear-level motivation to prove every doubter wrong, or accept that his NFL path might look completely different than everyone originally planned. Tim Hasselbeck just delivered one of the most honest, brutal, and potentially career-altering quarterback evaluations in recent memory. Whether you love it or hate it, his words carry massive weight because of his experience and reputation for telling uncomfortable truths. The entire football world is now watching to see how Shedeur Sanders responds to this nuclear assessment. Will he rise to prove the critics wrong, or will this evaluation become a self-fulfilling prophecy? One thing's absolutely certain, the NFL just got a whole lot more interesting, and Shedeur Sanders' every move will be under the most intense microscope imaginable. The gauntlet has been thrown. Now it's time to see what happens next.